Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder. And today, I thought I would talk about multiboxing and piloting. And just kind of give you a brief description of what these are, and then share my thoughts on them. And are there even any solutions to these things? And I'm sure not only Kingdom Builders, but other genres as well. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us out, because it helps out a lot. So firstly, let's start by defining what is actually multiboxing and what is piloting. Well, the short version is that in piloting, you are pretty much logging into other people's accounts and playing them. Multiboxing is where you are using multiple instances. So this could be, two PC clients. This could be you running multiple emulator instances. Right, where basically you would have multiple windows up. And you're just controlling more troops, or having the ability to control more troops than 5, right, which would be the max you could do on your account. And this has been a kind of a topic of conversation, it feels like, has came back up as of late. Part of this was because of what people thought army groups would do. And it's interesting because I remember when this was announced in the patch notes and you started having this resurgence of a conversation surrounding army groups and people thinking that, oh my God, this could just be the thing that, people that are running farms and are RSS selling and are already using synchronizers on emulators, etc., could just take so much more advantage of, because now they won't necessarily need to run multiple instances. They can just use one account and then have a bunch of people join. And obviously, we didn't know. I actually went around to ask a few people about this too as well. And from what I'm hearing is that you can only have 9 troops, legions, total legions, that can be moved around by one player. That would be 1 troop per player, up to 5 or up to 4 outside of yours, which is 5 total, plus your 4 legions. But you're kind of like controlling one group of 4 and one group of 5 is the way that it was explained to me, but for a total of 9. That doesn't really seem too impactful overall. I mean, yeah, is it still more than 5? Okay. But is it to the point of where you would maybe think, man, that, you could have one person going around controlling 15, 20, 30 legions? That seems a little bit more impactful. However, on this idea of piloting, let's start there. This is obviously not a new thing to Kingdom Builders. This has been going on, I'm sure, for years in Kingdom Builders, and I'm sure even beyond the genre. When you just think about anyone who is like, hey, what if I reach out to a buddy? And it's just, man, I can't log into my account today. Maybe we play in the same alliance. Can you help me out and just, do like 2 things and then skedaddle, right? So I can move on. Kind of doesn't sound too harmless, right? If it's kind of in that capacity, you just don't think like, oh my God, that's so blatantly awful. But when you start considering some of the more, I don't want to say egregious, but just more of the impactful acts of, well, let's say you're in a KVK. And let's say you're fighting across a bridge, or you're fighting up a ramp, or you are fighting through a mountain range. Like, it is a pivotal choke point. And it's during your alliance's downtime. And this is normally when you probably might get pushed in by the other alliance, who maybe it's their uptime. Well, what happens if you have a bunch of people that that can help, whether they're in your alliance or not, that can basically log into your account and they can play your account while you and other people are offline, but maybe the people that are playing your account, it's their online time, or they're just active around those hours. You kind of have to start thinking about, like, in the most intense way possible, right? The maximum is that you could basically have 24/7 coverage. Right? And you're not doing it the old-fashioned way, where you would normally try to identify players and or alliances that are just active on opposite or different time zones or time windows than you and your group are, in order to try to achieve this. I mean, this is something that has been not attempted, but it's something that has been worked on for a while. I mean, I remember my time playing in Rock and Infinity Kingdom and other Kingdom Builders before then, where you may want, like, if you're trying to be competitive in KVK and you understand the just utter importance of being able to try to achieve an up to 24/7 availability in your time zone coverage, you see international kingdoms where it's, you have like NA, EU, and Asia. And you just basically have like this lovely kind of 8-hour rotation where you basically have almost a near 24/7 time zone coverage. And there's some kingdoms that do it really well. And that's kind of what you're talking about when you're doing it the old-fashioned way compared to what something like piloting can do. And I think for me, that's really kind of where this, I don't sit here and say like, oh my God, how dare the game allow this? Like, this is something that is just done by people. And when I think about, okay, well, how would you address something like this? Well, maybe you would do something where like you lock in someone's, like you lock in their account. Maybe, for example, in order to log into their account, it has to send a security code to their phone number. Maybe there's some like 2-step authentication you have to do. Maybe there's another layer of authentication you would need to do. Maybe you would only allow for players to access their or to log in from another device, not their device, right? So maybe you only allow for people, like maybe you have to register devices, and those are the only devices that can access those accounts. So if someone tries to log in from a different device that is not the ones you've registered it with, then they just can't. Doesn't matter where they are. What that might do is it would allow for you to basically carry around your phone wherever you go in the world, and you can still access your account, but someone who is not on that registered device couldn't. That could maybe be one way to address it. Maybe you do some kind of IP lock where it's, well, at least when you're home, right? You could only play from there. Maybe that would affect you playing on the go. And I'm curious if anyone has any other, ideas that you think would be good and a way to kind of address something like piloting. And I guess even more so, if you're someone who has been the victim of playing against alliances or kingdoms that use pilots, what have been some of those effects? How has it made you feel? Is it something where you are like, whatever. Maybe you're of the mindset everyone's doing it, so it's like, it's whatever. Or is it more of, what, like this really sucked playing against that because we know for a fact that they are not active during those times, and it just made the KVK feel so manipulated or unauthentic and just kind of almost fake. Like it just made it feel like the fight wasn't real in a sense, and that our efforts were kind of almost wasted in vain. Like I would really be curious how you felt about having, if you either know it happened to you or if you maybe suspect it, what are your thoughts there? And then I guess the second part here is talking about the multiboxing. Now, I don't really hardcore know. I guess you could maybe do like the whole device setup thing as well for something like this, or maybe you would register devices. But I mean, all in all, the difference here is that you're still kind of going through the same process, right? You're running multiple instances, you're logging in to multiple different player accounts, and you're basically kind of syncing them all up. So you could technically move around, 20, 30, 40, 50 legions from one person. Like this is a possibility. It could even be more, right? Sure, it probably depends on hardware and connection, etc. But this is something that, some people have put it out there that they feel some people are doing this. And then I think about, okay, well, what are the potential negative impacts of this happening? Well, it's the same thing. It's maybe even worse because unlike piloting, you can have a lot more accounts at your disposal, especially if you're someone who's online during that offline period. And, what happens if you're running 10 accounts and you got 50, 55 legions marching around, that you're just kind of all controlling like the puppet master by yourself. I can only imagine how that just is not a good feeling for players, alliances, and kingdoms that are fighting against something like that. And then again, I think about the same solution. How do you address that? Well, again, maybe it is you registering certain accounts that you have to use. Maybe it's putting some kind of not a gotcha, but a CAPTCHA thing. Maybe it's running some kind of 2-step authentication. Like I would really be curious to hear what are some ideas on how you might go about addressing something like that. Because even though it sucks, and it's not to say that, like I said, any of this is necessarily the developer's fault, because this is really more just kind of player action and choice on the community's part, at least for those individuals who are partaking in doing it. how do you solve that? It's kind of similar to the whole, RSS selling thing that we've talked about a couple times, where I've said to people, look, the way that you address and you basically near eliminate RSS selling is that you just raise the city hall / the bazaar level that you need to be at in order to transfer resources to people, right? So instead of it being, whatever the level is now that you can transfer, and I'd have to double check because I don't recall there necessarily being an exact level, but maybe there is, and I'm just having a blank moment, is you just raise the level to 25. So the example would be, or 24, right? So meaning you have to be City Hall 24 or 25, and you say your bazaar has to be 24, 25 in order to start transferring resources, right? Like you can't transfer resources to people until they're like, when you put such a high level on it, that means that anyone who is selling or wants to sell RSS kind of is almost nearly eliminated at that point, or at least extremely delayed, because that means that those individuals who are building up those farming accounts or characters essentially have to get all of them up to that high of a level. That would take such a long amount of time to do that it probably would just disincentivize a number of people from doing it and immediately start. Because, you think about how impactful is that when you have a kingdom who is buying RSS versus kingdoms that are not. Those are advantages and disadvantages right then and there. And so, whether you're the ones doing it or utilizing it or not. So yeah, again, there's quite a bit here, and I just wanted to share my thoughts and kind of what I think about the situation. I think overall it just sucks, is that it really, when it's all said and done and it comes down to it, I don't think anyone wants to kind of be the victim of going up against or having these things done to them. And I would just hope that there is some level of care and responsibility and action and integrity that either the community and or the developers think to themselves of like, man, how can we really solve this? How can we do things and put measures in place to address these things? Even though it's not our fault, we didn't cause anything, but how can we help to basically make it so that way the integrity of the PvP and the competitive play in the game is held up to its highest standard? So yeah, that's it for me. I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments down below. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.